What is going on, investors? Hopefully, guys are doing well out there. It is time to take a look at Costco Wholesale Corporation, ticker symbol COST. The company reported their earnings just a couple of days ago. My apologies for not getting those out to you the day they happened. I happened to be on vacation, but we are recording this during the regular session. It's about 8:30 a.m. over here in California, so about 2 hours into the trading day, and we are seeing Costco, along with a lot of other stocks, pull back during the regular session, down about 2.7% year to date, probably not including today's drop, down about 6% over at Costco. I tell you what, when you see stocks like this start to pull back, we like to get interested in maybe buying some shares. Now, we'll take a look at the earnings. The Q4 earnings came in. The revenue came in at $51.9 billion. That was good for 15.9% year-over-year growth on this retail behemoth. That beat expectations by about $390 million. We'll take a look at what that is meaning to the stock chart as well. I took a big old broad view over at Costco. So I've got a monthly view going back, several decades actually. And we'll talk about when this stock starts to pull back, how big of a pullback it tends to do. And we'll see if the most recent pullback that this stock, along with a lot of others, has made it a buying opportunity. Now, in terms of the most recent quarter, they delivered a strong quarter. As we talked about, they beat on that revenue side. They beat on that earnings side. 16% revenue growth on a company like this. Absolutely fantastic. But I think that what has me the most excited is the fact that on the conference call, the CEO said that they are considering a membership price increase. And we'll show those to you when we get over to the financials over at Costco, how important these membership fees are. In fact, it's probably the most important thing on the entire financial statement. Although no final decision has been made, the retailer last raised their fees in 2017. And obviously in an inflationary environment where they might have to be, they're absorbing a little bit more cost on maybe the employee and certainly the raw material side, well, obviously could be a good thing. Now, the other thing that we'll take a look at with Costco is, considering this stock has come back along with a lot of others out there, have we seen a pullback in the multiple or the valuation? And we're not really seeing that. This is a 10-year chart of the price to earnings over at Costco, and we see that this stock has traded much lower than this. In fact, there seems to be a floor, at least over the last 10 years, in this 25-ish, 26 times sales. You can even go as high as 30 times sales. Well, we're trading right now closer to 45 times sales. So despite the pullback in the price of shares, well, the multiple hasn't compressed all that much. We'll take a look at these financials here. Came in with that $51.9 billion, which we showed you over here. That was that 14 or 16% revenue growth year over year from 44.8 up to this. We'll call that close to $52 billion. Now, the reason why the membership fees is what we pay so close attention to, and if management starts indicating that they might increase those fees, well, those fees flow right down to the bottom line of this company, quite frankly, because you take a look at the merchandise costs. As most of you guys know, the business model over at Costco is to bring merchandise into their gigantic warehouse stores and sell it for just fractions of points over and above the cost, because you see in the merchandise cost was $45.5 billion and they had net sales on that of 50.9. So not a big margin, okay? And on top of that, you got your employees and all the executives and all that kind of stuff. That's selling general administrative costs. That came in at $4.5 billion. So you come down here to operating income at $1.8 billion. About half of that, in fact, a little bit more than half of that, is attributable to these membership fees. Because as you can imagine, signing somebody up for a Costco membership, it just probably cost fractions of dollars in order to service that membership. And obviously it bolts on sales as well. So those membership fees and that membership growth over at Costco, probably some of the most important thing. Now, off of this $1.8 billion, about $1.3 billion of it flowed all the way down here to the bottom line. We had earnings per share coming in at $2.92 for the full year, $5.90. Let's check this dividend. Ooh, yeah, $3.16 for the entire year is what they pay on that dividend. And for the full year, they made $5.90. There's plenty of room to reward you as a shareholder. And what I wanted to do was, I remember a couple of years ago, Costco had a $10 special dividend. Here it was back in December of 2020. So we're looking not quite 2 years ago, but on this chart over at Costco, they show you that they pay a special dividend like every 2 to 3 years. So it is possible that towards the end of this calendar year in 2022, we're likely to maybe see a special dividend. We also would, I think you would expect it, if not this year in 2022, I think you would expect it actually in 2023. And this company certainly can't afford it from an earnings per share perspective, also from the balance sheet perspective. They have plenty of cash sitting here on the balance sheet, about 11.8, roughly equal to where they were a year ago. They have some liabilities, but not a lot. This is one of the probably the most healthy retailers from a debt perspective and a cash perspective. That's also why likely when you look at the multiple over at Costco, it's a little bit more inflated than other retailers out there, considering their strong balance sheet position certainly lends to that as well. Now, from a technical perspective, I've got a lot of stuff going on here. I'll clean it up and I'll explain it the best I can. But what I wanted to show you is back here in 2008, 2009, some of you might not have been investing back then, but that's the last gigantic kind of recession and fall that we've seen in the market. Certainly many of you remember what we did back in March of 2020, but it was nothing like 2008 and 2009. In fact, it was a bigger drop and it took longer for the stocks to recover. I mean, it still wasn't that long, but it didn't snap back like March of 2020. But we had a peak to trough on Costco. Again, these are approximate numbers, okay? So within a couple of points here, you had about a 46.6% drop in Costco. That obviously created a gigantic buying opportunity. I'll take that off the chart and I want to show you that I started a green trend line here. In fact, maybe we'll change the color of this to red so you can see it a little bit easier. But this red trend line I have starting kind of near the bottoms of where we were at in 08, 09, and we see that this stock has just basically been locked in an uptrend ever since then. Now, we've had some downdrafts here on this stock. Back in 2019, January 28, 2019, the stock drew down by about 23%, and then we did it again back in, this was kind of that March area, we drew down about 22%. Now, more recently, you might be wondering, well, how much has Costco pulled back? We've only pulled back about 18% on this one. In fact, that was peak to trough of just like last month. We're actually kind of more in the middle of that range. So this stock off the highs is only down about 8 to 9%. Now I'm going to switch this back to a daily view and take a look at what we've got from a technical perspective. Okay, we got our longer term uptrend line down here, but right now Costco from a technical perspective actually looks kind of good, to be honest with you. Okay, so we made some lows back here in January. We made another set of lows back in kind of February timeframe. If Costco is bottoming out somewhere in here, notice that we're making a higher set of lows. We're also making a higher set of highs along here as well. Longer term, we're looking for Costco to break above the all-time highs. I mean, obviously, right? When you invest in a stock, you want it to just go up, but to show that technically we are back in an uptrend, we need to get above the highs here back at 570. That's a good $50 or $60 higher than where the stock is right now. That would really confirm to me that this stock is ready to break out. Now, that is not really supported in our multiple, in our valuation, although if they do raise the price of those membership fees, and depending on how steep those membership price fees tend to be, well, that certainly will impact earnings over at this company, okay? Any dollar that goes into membership fees is going to flow, the vast majority of that is going to flow down to earnings at this company. And so it could be that that's priced in to a certain degree already. We've talked about how they have not raised fees since this 2017 level over at Costco, and notice that the price of the stock continues to go up. Now, I'm not saying every investor is looking at it this way, but that is one way to look at it. That membership fee price increases are already kind of priced into this multiple. Once those fees get pushed through, the multiple will start to compress a little bit, at least if the stock price remains the same. Right now, in the very, very shorter term, I mean, we're talking about over the last couple of months, the stock's actually looking pretty good from a technical perspective. I would expect it to meet some resistance back up here at the all-time highs, but even if it pulls back, if we continue on this shorter term uptrend that we're in here, well, all things being considered, it looks good with Costco. I tell you what, when you zoom this out to kind of a max view on Costco, this is a stock you can pretty comfortably buy the dip. It's had some major drawdowns in the past. If anything like that were to materialize in the coming weeks and months ahead, certainly would be one of the top stocks I would would look to add to. That was Costco Corporation. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Back in soon with more. Good luck with your investments.